Um, Glenn Gabbard talks about how this use of projective identification gets acted out on an inpatient unit. So if you've worked with borderline patients in inpatient settings, and I've done that quite a bit early in my career, and I actually saw this pattern happen over and over and over again. What a borderline patient does when they come onto an inpatient unit is they do what every other patient on that unit does. They start interacting with people. They interact with the staff. They interact with the other patients, and they start to form impressions of the other patients, of the staff, right? That's what all human beings do. What separates the borderline patient is the impressions they form of other people. The impressions they form are highly moralistic. People are good or bad, right? People are for me or against me. People are right or wrong, right? The people in their life out there in these really good and bad terms, what am I then? Am I good or bad? You know, and so it can really make us uncomfortable. The other thing I've seen too, in the rare instances over the course of my career where I've seen a staff person cross a boundary and develop a personal relationship with a patient, it's always been someone with borderline features. My late friend and colleague, Clarence Schultz, doing a psychotherapy seminar with him for 15 years, I just learned so much from this man. Clarence developed this chart to help us navigate the countertransferential waters with the borderline patient. Basically, it looks very complicated, but let me summarize it for you. Over here, you have the symptoms of BPD. This is what the patient presents with in treatment. And then over here, you have 3 different countertransference positions that you and I talk. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I dealt with those behaviors. But he and I worked through some of that, and we had a nice alliance. But the next big thing that happened is, as he was getting ready to be discharged and go back to the county jail and then have to go to withstand trial on the charges against him, he asked me to write a letter to his judge suggesting that he presented 0 risk for future violence. I couldn't do that because, quite frankly, he didn't present a high risk for future violence, but he has a modest risk for future violence. And so I said, well, you know, it's not something I really do. That felt like a real wounding to him. He became very upset with me, and he sort of misinterpreted too my refusal. He interpreted it as me thinking that he was this really highly dangerous, violent human being, which I didn't think. But this was, you know, quite a disruption to the alliance that we had. You have a patient who's dealing with the loss of a parent. Maybe you've lost a parent. You know what you went through. That can be a basis for empathy, right? As you're helping your patient resolve the feelings they're having, you can draw from your own life experience to better empathize or anticipate things they may go through, right? All of that can make us a better therapist, whether you share it or not, right? So you know, maybe your patient's going through a divorce and you've been through a divorce. You don't have to tell them about your divorce to use what you went through to better empathize with them. But on the other hand, maybe you want to do that. Right? I don't know, right? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. There may be times when you want to share with your patient, yes, you know, when I lost my parent, I went through that as well.